Happy Friday, my friends. So, the other day I got a question asked about why I left the field door to door sales so many years ago. And it's a great question because for those of you guys that know, I had a lot of success knocking on doors. But why did I shift to the telephones? Well, let me share with you guys my story for all of you that don't know. So, my first 10 years of my career, it was 100% knocking on doors. I would get the list of leads that I would receive, and I would just hit the pavement with everything I got. So for all of you guys that are new, you got certain people telling you that don't mess with telephone sales, focus on door knocking, that's the best way. And now you got others besides myself promoting telesales, virtual work. But again, why did I make the decision to go on the phones when I was number one for the carrier that I worked for at the time? Well, let me break it down. First challenge for me with door knocking was logistics. I realized that when I first started with the agency that I worked for, I had all kinds of leads for myself because we had less people working my territory. But as I started hiring agents, because that's what automatically happened, those territories started getting saturated by not just the company I was working for, but all the other final expense companies that were also marketing final expense. So what happened? So before, if I can work in Central California, maybe one county, now I'm having to work 2 or 3 counties, either south or north of me. So now, instead of me being home by 6 or 7 p.m., I'd be home by 9 p.m. Monday through pretty much Saturday. Because in the early part of my career, I worked 7 days a week and I worked everything around it. But again, the logistics of having to travel farther to go and see these people. And I did it. But it started to burn me out. Because sometimes when you get leads, as much as you want, especially with direct mail, it's very challenging to get everything perfectly in the zip codes or area that you're going to work. So that was a big challenge for me and for the agents that worked in my agency. Logistics, bad neighborhoods, and the over decade that I worked knocking on doors, I never had an issue with the neighborhood. I had some agents that had some problems, but I personally never had an issue with that, but it was a concern. Now, my closing ratio face to face was very high compared to the telephone. But again, if my leads were going to be farther away for me to go and work, and let's be honest, when you get your leads and you're calling the appointments, not everybody's going to pick up the phone on the first time that you call. So, you swing by their house, unannounced, knock on their door, and all of this costs money and time. If you're going from one part of the town to another part of town, it can really eat up most of your day behind the windshield simply because, again, the logistics. With telesales, my closing ratios were not as high as if I was at face-to-face. I love face-to-face. I had no fears about knocking on door. I tell my friends, man, I grew up a Jehovah's Witness. I've been knocking on doors since I was 7 years old. So I had zero fear about knocking on doors, and my numbers showed it. But again, with telesales, my closing ratio were lower, but the trade-off was I was no longer 4 or 5 hours a day in windshield time. Because in order for me to go where I had more potential, I had to go into the city. And I'm living in country, rural, Northern California. So I saved on the windshield time. I saved on the no-shows. And the most important thing, leads. Before, I was so caught up in territory and figuring out where I was going to go work that week and dealing with my agents because everybody wants to work close to home. That was gone. Because now I can work anywhere in California, and plus I can pick up non-resident states and work my time zones. So if I want to start at 5 a.m. and start taking calls from the eastern part of the United States, I can do that. So all of a sudden, the lead issue was over with. And that was a big deal. The traffic, the windshield time. But again, the trade-off was I had to go through more leads because those 4 or 5 hours that I was behind the screen, behind the windshield, I could have been behind the screen pitching. So again, my closing ratios were a lot lower over the phone compared to my face-to-face business. But I can see more people in that time frame that I would have spent behind the windshield, and that made a difference. Big difference. Is it perfect? No. Not only that, but again, I can work across the country in the states that I'm in. So as you're looking at this video and you're wondering, man, should I start with field sales or telephone sales? I would recommend you learn both, especially if you're new. There's nothing wrong with learning both. How to sell over the phone. In fact, when I would interview agents, when they would want to come and work with our agency, the first thing I would ask them is, do you call your leads to make appointments? Because a lot of field agents, they don't consider themselves telesales because they're door knockers. But a big majority of them pick up the phone to make their appointments. How many times have you made that call, try to set up an appointment, and the client says, how much is this? Can you tell me exactly what it is? And if you don't have your telesales script down, your closings down, then you're going to lose. Like I mentioned, my closing ratios over the phone were lower than face-to-face, meaning I had to eat more leads, create more cost in order to make the sales that I wanted to. But again, the trade-offs were worth it to me. I've been talking, again, to a lot of veterans that got burned out in the field, and they're no longer in the business. They're enjoying their residual income. But again, if you're new, my recommendation is to learn both. If you're a field guy, learn how to be a good field agent. If you need to pick up and learn the phone, learn it. It will give you the edge that you need, especially if you're calling to set up appointments. You're going to start to realize, like I did a long time ago, whoa, I can go through my presentation here, close them, and I could save those 80 miles there and back. So again, try both, learn both, and it makes you just a better rounded agent. So I hope this helped you guys. I wish you guys the best and see you guys at top. Peace.